Right. Okay, guys, welcome back to Teen Muscle Radio and episode number 18. So we've had, again, a bit of a brief pause in between episodes, but I think with it coming to the end of the bodybuilding season, it's people are sort of shifting on to different things, schedules are changing, and it's a bit difficult to get people on. But I'm very happy to be joined by my friend Emma today, so Emma Walsh. So before I sort of go into the questions, Emma, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience and give yourself a bit of background?
Hello, my name's Emma Walsh. I am originally from Belfast. I've lived in Liverpool for about 8 years. I'm a figure competitor, which is how I kind of know AJ. What do I do? I'm a wholesale manager for a supplement company called PNI Supplements. I'm also one half of the duo that is, one half of the duo that is AM Performance. We are based in Liverpool as well, obviously. I started competing in May 2015. And yeah, that was my first competitive season. Second one is the one that's just coming to a close now, 2016.
Okay, cool. How old are you, Emma, as well?
I am. Why'd you have to ask that? 21 plus 6. I'm 27.
Yeah, you can't believe that though, so it's fine. Cool. Okay, so yeah, really interesting introduction. Do a very similar thing to me as well, like obviously with the coaching, etc. And got another job on the side, which is really cool. So you're very, very busy, which is obviously a lot of girls will relate to that when sort of trying to get into the gym and training. So this will be very informative. So just to go over sort of briefly before we get into things, what we're going to go over so people can hang around, etc. for the different topics. So we're going to go over a little bit as to how Emma's got into training, and then also just touching on her 2016 contest prep, how she structured it, difficult phases, etc., her training and nutrition. So if you want to find out about a bit more about a bodybuilding prep for a female, then that will be very good for you. And also we'll just sort of round up as to Emma's advice for sort of females getting initially into the gym and common mistakes made. So if you're a relatively new female to the gym, then hanging around for the end part of the podcast will probably be beneficial for you. So yeah, without further ado, Emma, just give us a bit of an idea as to sort of how things all began in terms of your weight training career and how you initially got into the gym.
Okay, so I had a bit of a rubbish relationship with health, fitness, kind of all of it growing up. I, as I'm sure a lot of girls will relate to, had issues, a terrible relationship with food, and that kind of developed into an eating disorder at certain points, and then went back and forth between different diets, that kind of thing. And exercise to me was always something that was, its sole purpose was to get rid of food. That's all it was. So I used to torture myself with cardio classes and this and, you know, the boot camps, that kind of thing, and I didn't have a clue. But I then kind of, one of the really good things that came out of having an eating disorder and that kind of bad relationship with food, I try and look at the silver lining, which was that I learned so much about nutrition. I just kind of, it became like, obviously in a very unhealthy way, an obsession. But I kind of learned a lot because I didn't just follow a diet. I learned how things are processed by the body, that kind of thing. So then I continued to go to the gym and tried to work on my relationship with food a little bit, and that started massively improving. But I still hated the gym. And then one day, instead of going to my usual whatever it was class, some ridiculous legs, bums and tums or whatever, I went to Body Pump. And no one ever believes me when I say that's genuinely what got me into weight training. I went to a Body Pump class and I was like, "Ooh, weights, what are these?" And we squatted, but we didn't squat.
We squatted.
So I thought I was squatting. And I was like, "I like this." And I mentioned it to a friend who then said, you should go into the weights area if you like that, get out of the class. So I did, and I didn't look back. I think males and females will relate to the fact that, you know, once you get the bug, that's kind of it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just fell in love with it. And then I got Instagram and was like, they look really cool. I want to look like that. And yeah, it kind of, because I still love nutrition, that relationship kind of developed a lot more,
Yeah.
and obviously they go hand in hand. So yeah, I just learned a lot, and it.
Interesting, yeah, definitely an interesting route into weight training. But I'm sure that sort of the popularity and expanding popularity of sort of the boot camps and the classes is definitely going to be a lot more people coming from the sort of the classes element of things. Yeah, which is interesting. But what age were you when you sort of got into the boot camps? How old were you when you sort of did the body pump?
I I want to say maybe like 20, 24, I
Oh,
think.
really? Okay, so quite a late entrance to weight training.
Well, that was when I discovered body pump, but before that, I'd been like back in my kind of eating disorder days and all of that. When I was say like 16,
Okay,
I was going to the gym and running on the treadmill for hours to burn calories. So I'd always been in the gym. It
okay,
just in different forms.
I see. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's something to note because obviously you've got quite a, if girls are part of image of yourself and your physique in the podcast, but you've got quite a lot of development, and obviously you haven't been training for years and years and years, so it just shows that you can sort of be a late bloomer to weight training and still make great progress. Which is cool. So something I wanted to know also is, when you were growing up, were you? I know that you said you did running, etc., to burn calories, but did you sort of play any competitive sport? Did you have a competitive drive at any point in your sort of your growing when you were growing up before you did weight training?
I've always been competitive in nature,
Okay.
and I always knew, on some level that there was a channel that I could put that into.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I was constantly running around trying to find it, but I thought that I hated sport, because I associated sport with PE in school, and I hated PE.
Ah,
So
okay.
I was like, I knew that there was something because I loved the idea of kind of a channel, if you like, and probably that's where a lot of my kind of anal relationships with food kind of came from because I was like control and that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, Whereas I knew that there was a way to do that healthily, but I just hadn't found it until a lot later.
Okay, sure, yeah, because a lot of people that get into bodybuilding tend to have some sort of competitive endeavor prior to it, just because they feel like they need something, so they get into the gym and they're like, how can I have a competitive side of this? So it's either powerlifting or bodybuilding. There's two sort of routes, but yeah, interesting. In terms of you getting into it at 24, spending some time weight training, I know that potentially we'll go over how optimal your training was when you started, but with being a girl with such great development now, would you say that you were someone that responded to weight training fairly quickly, and how would you sort of relay your progress initially in terms of when you started seeing that you were making gains in terms of muscle and gaining size, and just sort of give us some context on that?
I think probably it's something, to be completely honest, I've questioned myself because I know that, without saying I'm not saying I'm the best by any means, but I have noticed that I noticed quite early I'm developing muscle and I'm developing it quickly, and
Mm.
I don't really know why. I think there's a number of factors. One, I knew about nutrition,
Okay.
and I wasn't afraid to eat. So
Okay.
even as soon as I started in the gym, I think anybody who's already started training, that hunger that you get when you first squat or when you first do anything, it's like I call it the anabolic hunger, and it's just you can eat everything. I could already eat everything, so make me squat, eat a little bit more. I've also, again, from just knowing a bit about what I was doing, I've always had a high protein intake. A lot of girls don't, and I've
Mm.
now found with a lot of female clients, um, I'll say, okay, hit this is your protein target per day, and to me it's nothing, and they'll go, where on earth am I going to get
Yeah.
that?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Never something I've struggled with, and it's only been recently. I think I listened to a podcast. I can't remember who it was said it now, but they said, every big guy that they meet has a massive protein intake, and there's got
Mm.
to be something in that, and yeah, so there's
Cliff
that.
Wilson, I'm pretty sure, said
Yeah,
that.
it
Yeah.
was well
On
thing,
the
yeah.
Muscle Box Radio, yeah, yeah, definitely. We listen to the same podcast. Yeah. Yeah, so you're saying that basically, you launched you already like naturally, intuitively were eating a lot of protein.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Maybe not naturally, but just from having learned I knew what
Okay.
protein did. I knew
Yeah.
so. I always had it was always kind of like my cornerstone.
Mhm.
Whereas I think a lot of girls will come to it after they address whether their carbs are low or high enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
what else? I early development was the fact that I didn't go in and do kind of the kickbacks and the tricep extensions and that kind of thing.
Okay.
I walked to the squat rack. I found a barbell and learned those, and it was compounds. And I just look back and thank God for body pump, because the only reason I did that was because I knew how to use the bars. I didn't know how to use
Oh wow.
the little
Uh,
bars. But I was like, oh, I know how to squat. We did a variation, in it's a loose term, of a deadlift. So I found a platform, found a squat rack, and just put as much on it as I could, um, and tried to learn how to do it well.
yeah.
And I think that term, teamed with nutrition, just kind of was a really good combination. I
hmm
think that's I got lucky.
Yeah, and that's alongside genetics as well. I think that you've obviously built a lot of muscle in a relatively short period of time, but I think that's probably something that a lot of females miss, and they tend to sort of be almost spinning their wheels for so long in the gym, purely because I think they're maybe fed the idea that females shouldn't be eating, they shouldn't be doing the sort of the compound movements like the squats and the deadlifts, and it's sort of refreshing to hear that that's something you did straight away, rather than sort of being dragged into the more the pumpy the and the thing with that also is like you're almost learning the basics of the movement patterns, and that can transfer onto the more pumpy stuff. Like if you don't know how to engage your glutes on a squat or a deadlift, like how do you expect to engage them on a kickback, which is a relatively complex movement to do when you don't know how to just basically activate your glutes? So yeah, very interesting. It's refreshing to see that. In terms of your sort of friends, family, etc., when you got into weight training, were they supportive, and did they sort of initially see any of the progress that you were making and sort of say, Emma, you're getting too big, what are you eating, why are you eating all this chicken, etc., and would you give any advice for maybe females dealing with that right now?
Okay, so I've got two brothers and my mum and dad. Dad is totally cool with it, was just like, oh, all right then. Neither of my brothers train, interestingly. A lot of people go, don't they find that strange that, you're the one in the gym doing that? And no, they were totally cool with it. They'd always known me as like Emma, who knows about diet. So anybody who wanted to lose weight, it was Emma, what should we not eat, that kind of thing. My mom, and I think a lot of females will get this, was horrified, absolutely appalled. I think probably still is, to be honest.
Oh no.
It was when I said the term bodybuilding. She was kind of it in a very protective way, which I'll be honest, I didn't see at the time. I thought she was being a pain in the arse. But she obviously had reservations because she'd seen this kind of, as I was growing up, she'd seen the really unhealthy relationship with food, the control mechanisms, all of that. She'd seen me lose a lot of weight. She'd then seen me balloon up and then diet or restrict myself to such a degree. I was so unhealthy that she was terrified of that, and she thought that this was, and it very much could be, a kind of a way that I could get away with doing that again and go, but it's bodybuilding, but it's prep. She also, when I showed her pictures of girls that I was like, look how amazing she looks, that's what I'm aiming for, she was like, Emma, I don't like that's not nice. So it was kind of a little bit of mutual education over the years, where I've kind of said, it doesn't have to be unhealthy. She was also terrified that steroids were going to come into the
Yeah,
equation.
yeah, sure.
Obviously, for anybody listening, I'm a natural athlete, and have reassured my mum about that on a daily basis for the last 2 years. Yeah, as you know, and as probably a lot of people know, when you see a picture of a competitive bodybuilder, you go, wow, she's massive. I'm 53 kilograms. I really don't weigh very much, and I'm tiny. And when I'm in clothes, people think I'm minuscule. And I think my mum seeing that happen was then like, oh, okay, so you're not gonna like struggle to get through doorways.
Yeah.
And she was educating other people about nutrition and having an approach to it that was healthy. She was kind of like, oh, well, that's nice. But yeah, mums get scared.
Yeah, definitely. I think actually from to relate it to myself, I don't think either had a massive issue with it, but then again, I'm male, so I think that it's more acceptable. So it's definitely nice to hear from a female perspective how things are taken on board. So yeah, definitely, and I think that obviously the way that you dealt with it, sort of going down the natural route, being very reassuring with your parents, is probably great advice to sort of females dealing with that right now, and maybe just giving them the concept that you aren't going to get like massive, and maybe educating them just a little bit is probably the best idea moving forward. So yeah, in terms of, sorry Emma, go ahead.
I think when parents see that it's making you happy and that it's enriching your life, and it should do if you do it the right way, even though prep's hard and that kind of thing, obviously it should still always add value to your life. And when they see that that's happening, they want what's best for you, so they will kind of go along with it.
Yeah, definitely agreed. So in terms of bodybuilding itself, and I know that you competed in the, am I correct in saying that the MPA was maybe your first competitive outing, or was it prior to that you competed in another federation?
Prior to that, so my first was May 2015 with NABA. I did the NABA athletic figure category, qualified for that. Yeah, May 2015, qualified for NABA British finals. The following, I think it was like 2 weeks later, and then took a little break for like a month, and then did the MPA Midlands in August 2015. Came first there, and then went to the finals there, and then this year has been UK DFBA.
I see. Okay. So in terms of those federations, how did you initially find out about them, and would you give any sort of potential advice to females that are looking to compete in any sort of federation, and how they should, maybe we should tie in the question how they could possibly sort of look at their physique and think, okay, this is the right fit for me?
Yeah, that's such a good question actually, because it's such a big part of it. You think, wow, I'm going to prep and I'm going to look great, and then you go, wait, how do you compete? How does everyone know how to do that? There's a world of difference between different federations. I'd say for me, NABA is well, not for me, for everyone, NABA is untested, and I competed with NABA knowing that, but didn't realise that the implications of that would mean that I looked quite small on stage. I think I held my own in terms of condition, but it's hard. It's hard to compete in an untested federation when you are natural, especially as a female. And I think that then kind of made me look towards the natural feds. I would still do NABA again. I loved NABA, but it was hard. So then I looked towards the natural feds, and you kind of have less of a massive leap in terms of the differences between categories. So to give anybody a bit of background, some federations will have bikini, and then I think it's body fitness, that kind of thing. I think UK and UK UP, they have that for females, and then there's ladies bodybuilding. The natural feds tend to have figure. I think UK DFBI now has bikini as well, but there'll be figure, and then female bodybuilding, and there might be different types of figure. So there might be toned figure, and then trained figure, and there's a little, or athletic figure. There's a bit of a difference, tends to just be one condition, but size wise, because you can't get massive as a female naturally, there isn't as big a discrepancy. So maybe have a look at, first of all, the natural feds. I'd say stay with those, unless you're not natural, in which case you've no need to, and you shouldn't, obviously. So yeah, the have a look at the feds and then maybe just look through people's Instagrams. That's what I did. I just stalked the life out of past winners. You
Hmm.
can go to the websites of, say, if you choose UKDFBA, go on the website, see who won last year, go and look at her profile, read the criteria. That's a really good one as well. There isn't a single Fed that won't have on its website a breakdown of what you should look like for each class.
Yep.
Um, and then also something to consider in terms of picking a federation is what you want to do on stage, because some federations you have to do a routine. Now, I absolutely love doing a routine. I think people who do it tend to always want to do it again because it's just like it's such a good way to express things. Um, some federations you won't do that. You'll just do a T-walk. So it's important to weigh up what you're comfortable doing.
Yep.
That kind of thing. Poses as well. I know with UK DFBA we literally just did mandatory quarter turns.
Okay.
Whereas with MPA you have your front double by, your basically all your bodybuilding poses, but in the figure category. So just what you want to display and what past winners look like. Consider all your options as well. Don't rule anything out, because you might think you'll hate a routine and then you do it and you think, wow, I love dancing on stage in a bikini. It's really fun.
Wow, I think that was possibly the best advice you could give in terms of federations and how to pick. I think that it is really and still as a coach, I still get confused. Like I have a few clients next year competing who sort of came to me saying they want to do a bikini, and in my eyes they don't look like a bikini girl. They look like they've got enough muscle already for figure, and I feel fairly comfortable making that decision, but sometimes I'm like, am I right or am I wrong? Like, because there's quite a thin line sometimes between the two, and I think that it's almost a little bit difficult, especially with UK DFBA now having bikini. It's like, do I put them in for a natural show and still do bikini? Because I'm obviously I'm all up for putting people in for natural federations, and that's something that I wanted to learn from you. Is like, what do you think the benefits of NABA are, and MPA, and whether you'd still compete, whether it's a nice federation, etc. So it's good to hear. And I think also quite recently, for context, I think one of the MPA figure girls who came maybe second at the MPA British actually won something in NABA. So I think that's the crossover there is I think she won something quite big in NABA. So I think there is still quite like a decent chance in some of the classes in NABA, maybe one of the less muscular ones, to still be competitive. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'm sure that girls will take a lot from that. In terms of your first competition prep, when you got to a point with your physique, was there like a certain point where you were like, okay, I think I've got enough muscle now to compete? And how would you really sort of determine that point? Because I can imagine that could be quite difficult for a girl to do.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially if you aren't like, say I'd never competed before now. I'm surrounded by so many people who do, so you
Yeah.
have kind of feedback. You've maybe been to some shows, that kind of thing. But if you've never done it before, I say it all the time with clients. It is just kind of as harsh as you've got to see what's there.
Yeah.
I think that if you've got shape, you can tell if you've got shape. You can
Structure,
progress.
yeah.
Are obviously always a great one. Kind of just if you can notice quite a bit of difference, then you're gonna have a decent chance anyway of, if you start cutting back a little bit, getting rid of some fat, that there'll be something there.
Yep.
Judge as you go. Don't rush into it. Do not think, I've been to the gym 3 times, it's time to prep.
Yeah, I've got a sponsor. Let's go.
Absolutely. We all know that. I guess it's a good thing that competing is so popular now, but it can be frustrating as well, in that a lot of people jump into it just to get a nice shot for Instagram, and you run the risk of standing on stage looking really silly. And so just take your time. What's the rush?
Yeah, definitely great advice. And I think that it's maybe potentially sometimes for females, I think it depends. It totally depends, because there's many females out there that do get quite heavy, and that's not a problem, and I'm not like saying that that's an issue at all, but it happens. But what I'm trying to say is the majority of females, especially my clients, I see that they actually stay relatively close to a competitive stage weight, and I'm not saying like they're shredded, but they are leaner generally, body type to body type, than males comparative to the stage weight. So I think it's almost a little easier to see, okay, right, you're almost at the point where you've got enough development to go, because they're not really pushing the body weight like fairly high above where they might compete at. Whereas I'll have a male come to me, and he might have been in a gaining phase for a long period of time, put on way too much fat, which you don't generally see with a female. So it's much more difficult for me to say, okay, to the male client, okay, I know that you've got enough muscle to compete. So I think sometimes it is easier for a female to assess whether she's muscular enough. Would you agree with that at all?
I would. I mean, yeah, I think it's so hard to tell, because as you say, if someone puts on a lot of weight, you don't know what's what. And unless you've got a DEXA, you're not really gonna know. And if you've never been lean before, then you have no comparison. So I know for me, the first time that I was doing it, I had progress pictures on how far I'd come, but I was going, but it's useless information. I've got no measure of whether that then means at the same body weight I'll be leaner or like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What I found myself doing, which is a dangerous game, was going, okay, could I be, for example, 20 weeks out now? Well, let's find someone on Instagram who competes and then look and see what she looked like at 20 weeks out now. Okay, well, I'm leaner than her, so I'll be ready on time. And it doesn't work like that. So I think probably your best measure is always going to be previous personal experience. You know how long it takes you to get lean, you know what your body weight is, you know how much relatively you put on in a certain amount of time. But if you don't have that, it is just trial and error. Give yourself an open-ended prep, if you want to see it that way, rather than start dieting and see what happens. Maybe just kind of see when you get the feels and go, do you know what, that looks like a let's see where we end up.
Yeah, I was definitely going to agree with that, or almost say that. I was like, there's definitely got to be some merit in just doing a dieting phase. Like, there's no rush. So in terms of just a female, just diet and get relatively lean, see how things are looking, and then if you get to a point where we see that maybe we're not potentially ready with enough development, then come back out, invest a little bit longer, and then play it like that. Like, there's shows every year, so people don't have to rush, do they? If
you're kind of at the start, we all know how much we wish we could extend the whole newbie gains period. You don't want to sacrifice too much of that, but also I found when I first started training, the whole body recomposition thing happens to such an extent that you don't really need to focus too much on the dieting phase to see more definition, just through putting on muscle, not necessarily losing fat. So you'll kind of get a feel for things anyway if you just kind of cruise along. You don't need to rush to cutting or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And anecdotally as well, something on this topic is I'd like to sort of cover the fact that when people get into the gym and compete with, I've seen it even within like a 6-month window, so they'll start the gym and then within 6 months they want to do a bikini show, and what actually ends up happening is these people get to the point where they don't enjoy the gym anymore because they've never really enjoyed the gym just for the gym. They think that the gym is an outlet to get ready for a show, and then once the show's over, like, they don't have that passion for the training. So I think, if you'd agree that building a passion for training and nutrition has got to be installed before someone even thinks about doing a competitive outing, because they won't see it through, or at least they won't enjoy it. Would you agree with that?
I agree more, honestly. I think it's so, compare it to any other sport. You wouldn't become a semi-professional footballer, or you wouldn't play a competitive football match if you didn't enjoy kicking a ball about with your mates first. And that's often skipped. And so I probably just because of social media and like kind of that contingent of people who will go, I'll do it for a photo sh or instead of doing it for a photo shoot, they'll go, I'll do it for a really great stage shot that I can use for ABCD. And they kind of skip the part that goes, oh, hang on, I really love the gym, and this is kind of a secondary outcome to that, which is really sad because, as you say, they then step off stage and they're like, oh, the gym is to do with that. I don't want anything to do with it, and they've sold themselves short on something they could have really had a passion for.
Yeah, yeah, definitely agree. And that like that analogy there with the footballer is spot on. Like that's worthy of a status, that one. So be careful, I might nick that one in the future. But yeah, like seriously, I totally agree. And I think females will just enjoy it more, like if they just invest and spend a bit more time, actually enjoying training and building muscle and enjoying that side of things, and then they'll appreciate it so much more when they come back down and compete, and they'll love it. It's just about giving it enough time.
I remember thinking during my first prep, every session, obviously, like, it gets so tough, but even before I started prep, just when I was training, that high you get when it's probably endorphins and I don't know what else, but when you walk out the gym, just getting into it, and it's just the best feeling in the world. And I remember thinking, God, that session was so hard, but I loved it. And then I'd see and think about people who put themselves through prep and don't love it, and it almost makes me like massively admire them, because people will say, how do you do it? How are you so disciplined? And I almost feel like a cheat in a way, because I'm like, I love it. So even though I did it, I still love it more. But if I didn't love it and still did it, like that's next level commitment. How they do it, I don't. So it's sad.
I don't get it either. I don't get it how people can do it and not love it and write a status every day about how much they're hating it, and the lead up to their competition, they're literally counting down the days until it's over. Like, can't wait for this to be over. Can't wait to be. And it's just like, let's just quit. Like, no, like you're not sponsored. You're not paid to do this. You're doing this for a hobby. You're probably, no offense, but you're probably not going to place well because your head's not in it. You don't love it, and it's just so irritating for me to see things like that. But I do totally get what you mean, because like we'll go through like horrific times in prep, and we're pushed through by the fact that we still enjoy it, and we almost take a bit of fun out of feeling like complete rubbish. But feeling like complete rubbish and not enjoying it is like it's just whole nother level. So
I stepped off stage it was the UK DFBA qualifiers this year, and somebody who I guess I would kind of categorise in the ones who compete for the wrong reasons. She competed last year, just a friend. And I stepped off stage and she texted me and said, "Wow, well done, that's amazing, so happy for you." And I went, "Yeah." And she went, "But more importantly than anything, it's over. Like, this was dead good." And I was
fuck off.
But I really love prep and now it's over. And she's just said, and I was just thinking, and I actually put in the status that I put up afterwards, I said, if you step off stage and think, thank God it's over, then this just isn't for you. It should be, the torture's over, when can I do it again?
Yeah, I like prep. I find like anecdotally as well, I'm way more productive. I'm in a routine, like everything's routine. I get up at a certain time, I go to bed at a certain time. Like, it may sound boring, but I get so much more done. I'm way more productive. I have for majority of it, I have higher energy. Like right now, in an off season, there's plenty of days where I feel way more fatigued than the middle of a prep, because I don't know, I just like overeating, and your body just, it's the same when you get to an end of a prep, you're fatigued. It's the same when you get to a top end of an off season, your body's just not wanting to be overfed anymore. So I really like prep.
I think
I really enjoy it
with you. I'm so much more, the way I think of it is your body becomes so efficient at everything because it has to. It's like, I must make myself really good at processing this food because I'm not getting much of it. And that carries over to almost everything. You're like, I have to be efficient in my training because I have this much energy compared to this much usually. So I've got to become efficient that way. And it just carries over to every aspect of your life. and yeah, I completely agree. I love prep. I love the discipline of it. I love the structure, the routine. Um, I, I even enjoy the hunger some days. It's weird.
I know what you mean. It just, I don't know, it creates discipline like no other. And yeah, totally agree with the fact that sometimes prep is enjoyable, hunger is enjoyable. So before we sort of bang on for too long, because we've just been talking for ages, I'd like to touch a little bit on your actual sort of contest prep. So first of all, just give us an idea as to the core basics. So let's have a think in terms of body weight. Sort of how much did you lose over the course of the competition prep, just to give females an idea as to maybe how much a body weight should potentially change in a diet in a competition prep.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to put some disclaimers on this one. Right, my first prep was like the total wrong way to do it. I had I won't name names, but I had a terrible, irresponsible coach who, you know, when you hear people giving off about the real irresponsibility of 12-week transformations, that was me, and I
Yeah.
ended up with
Oh
some
no.
real lasting health problems because of it. I I was just like overtrained to death. My hormones and a whole adrenal system were a complete mess, and I just thought, yeah, but it's prep. Isn't this how it's done? So yeah, that then led me to kind of learn how to do it right. But it meant that my starting point this year was totally different because you can imagine
Okay.
the rebound, etc., from that
Yeah.
kind of thing happening. So this prep, I competed at just over 52 kilograms, and I started at 68. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah. However, that will be happening again. Because I think I kind of, not that kind of I would have gone, okay, I need to get to like 68 kilograms, like absolutely not. It wasn't enjoyable. But I did let myself kind of let myself go, let myself
Yeah.
wander further than I normally would, only because I needed to fix myself, and
Okay. Yep.
hormones and that kind of thing was very much a case of, right, suck it up. We're going to have to go back to a totally different starting point. Um, in terms of usual starting points with either my clients or with myself, usually, so next time, coming into next season, that kind of thing, I don't think it's ever right to put a number on how close you'll stay to stage weight. I think the
Yep.
mirror is your best friend. The scale should only ever really be used, in my opinion, to make sure you're not massively jumping or not moving at all.
Mhm.
Or jumping, actually, a little bit. So yeah, just to make sure that, as a marker, obviously, alongside tracking your calorie intake and your macros, to make sure that things are consistent-ish. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, use the mirror as your to track your progress. Then what was the other question about prep? Starting point,
Um.
weight
Yeah, it
change.
was primarily starting point and the weight change that I wanted to know first.
Yeah.
So that's like you answered that perfectly well. In terms of what I want to know next is sort of your generic approach to how you would work with nutrition. So give
Yeah.
the listeners an idea as to what approach you would take, perhaps where calories started and the change in calories comparative to maybe the start calories and the end calories, just to give an idea.
Okay, so it depends mainly on the starting point that we've spoken about, but also how much time you've got. I
Hmm.
like to prep long. I just think that especially again with females, you don't want to rush things. You can damage your health, and it makes it really, really hard and also really unsustainable.
Hmm.
So Calories, where you start, hopefully you should always kind of be starting with an idea of where your maintenance is, what
Okay.
you are currently at, and hopefully haven't got that as high as you can.
Mm.
First drop, probably make it. With myself, I'll kind of go for quite not a massive leap, but maybe say 10-20% as a minimum to begin with, and then just see how long you can get out of it. Don't change until you
Yep.
need to change. Um, People always say, do you do high carb, low carb, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter at the beginning. It doesn't matter. The carbs and that kind of thing will only really come into it when you're further in. Um, However long you think you need longer, especially if you're a girl who hasn't done it before. And 9 times out of 10 will say, how much do you charge for a 12-week prep? And we don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
First, if you are a first-time competitor, you'll have an open-ended prep. Because
Yep.
as we said, we don't know if you are ready, or if you need longer building muscle, that
Yep.
kind of thing. But yeah, you kind of give yourself longer than you need, and absolute worst case scenario, you're going to be ready early, ready early.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Ready early.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and that's not going to be a bad thing. You can either cruise through or you can compete earlier. So um, don't pick the last show of the season and give yourself 12 weeks and drop your
Mm-hmm.
calories massively and try to gain it. You won't. You'll regret it. Don't give yourself too long either, probably, um, because you don't want to be taking tiny, tiny little drops the whole way through, because that's tiring and that's exhausting as well. And you can kind of lose motivation quite a lot. And
Yep.
also be conscious of how low you think you can go. Um, we all know that at the end of a prep, you're going to get to a point where your metabolic rate is so much lower. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to drive it so far into the ground that you have 18 months before you can eat normally again afterwards, which is
Yep.
kind of the situation I ended up in the first time round. Um, Give yourself kind of a cut off and say, right, if I'm going to end up on, say, 1,500 calories, I don't want to be starting much lower than, say, 2,200, because where am I going to go? Um, yeah, and I'd say, yeah, carbs and fats not really being relevant until you're further in. Just try and just go with it to begin with. That's probably a good
Mm-hmm.
tip for females. You start looking for daily changes and am I hungry? Am I hungry enough? Is my appetite gone? Am I training enough? Am I doing enough cardio? Am I kind of just chill out, see how you go a while, leave the stress for later on.
Yep, definitely. Like really, really good advice there in terms of how to drop calories, how to sort of continue progressing. And I think that a lot of the time people make mistakes in terms of wanting to rush and get it over and done with. And I'm exactly the same with you from the sort of the 12-week standpoint. I just with my coaching, it's like you come on board, and it's monthly. It's like you just pay monthly. That's it. And that's the best way to operate in terms of both allowing the competitor to have as long as they need, and also just guaranteeing that they're going to be ready and also healthy at the end of the process, rather than sort of coming to people 12 weeks out saying I want to do a show and it's 12 weeks out, so I'm going to pay for your package now. And quite a lot of the time you won't have enough time, or you'll have to rush, and that just doesn't suit well for coaching at all. So yeah,
I
I
think
totally agree.
if a coach is selling a 12 or 14 or 16 week prep program, whatever you want to call it, and it's online and the price is advertised, and they've never met you and they don't know what you look like compared to what someone else looks like. They don't know what you're eating, what you've eaten for the last year. There's something very, very wrong with that. So if you have gone and signed up, or you're considering going to sign up for 12 weeks with such and such a coach, just be aware that they're not going to have your best interests at heart if that's what the way they're advertising their services. And it's not something to play about with, because it can cause a lot of harm.
Yeah, as you know, full well. So yeah, very good advice there, and I think that it is a serious topic, so definitely something that needs to be noted. Okay, so finally, just wanted to give maybe the females out there just a little bit of an idea as to how someone who competes in train figure trains with weights like right now. So obviously you're sort of in a growing phase, a gaining phase, an off season, whatever you want to call it. So give us maybe just an idea as to your week of training, and how it maybe changes, or does it stay the same. Just give us an idea of your current week of training, just for an insight.
Current week of training. So at the minute, I competed about, was it like 4.5, 5 weeks ago. So at the minute, I wanted, when you first compete, you come off stage and your motivation's like sky high, and you're like, I am going to lift all the weights all the time, and you can't stop me, and I'm going to be the strongest. And you've got to pace yourself. You've got to, because your body needs to recover. So at the minute, I'm really kind of dying to like push the weight on everything, but I'm working at percentages that are safe for me while still kind of building my strength back up. I'm always strength focused, so I kind of have my split at the minute. I've got 2 lower days. My training is focused around my compound movements rather than body parts. Okay. So although it obviously works out kind of body part way anyway. So I've got 2 lower days. So one is squats, one is deadlifts, and then I've got 2 upper days, and I have a conditioning day. Each session is under an hour, and yeah, that's I like to kind of include quite a bit of, I always say to my boyfriend / coach that I want to be as athletic as I can be. So we've got my conditioning day that's very much focused on kind of being athletic, keeping my conditioning good, I guess. I don't do any cardio outside of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Did you do cardio when prepping, out of interest, or did you track steps, or give us an idea as to maybe how you increased expenditure? It's just a question that's come up at the top of my head.
Yeah, I track steps every day anyway. I aim for everyone I think does the 10,000.
10K.
On prep, I actually found during prep towards the end I had to be careful not to go over that too much, because again, for competitive natures, you've kind of got to, it becomes this competition with yourself, your steps, and I'm like, ooh, if I walk to the shop now I can get 12,000 today. And at the end of prep, you've got to conserve energy. You've got to stop doing that. And I needed to slap on the wrist a few times with that. Cardio-wise, during prep, I started off with none. And then when it came to the point where I needed to make another calorie reduction, I introduced some HIIT. After a while, I didn't really recover very well from HIIT. So I dropped that out and replaced it with steady state. And that was just incline walking on the treadmill. Then after that, what did I do? I brought in barbell complexes actually, which I guess is kind of another form of HIIT, and brought them in, just very lightweight, high intensity stuff, and did that maybe like once, twice a week, and just made sure it wasn't affecting recovery. And then I dropped cardio out altogether about the last 4 weeks just to try and stay alive.
Cool. That's okay. That's really good insight as to sort of how you increase expenditure. So it doesn't sound like you were doing crazy amounts, and plenty of the time you hear people doing, especially females, sort of doing an hour of lifts in the morning, an hour of lifts in the evening, and once after cardio. It's like the whole day is spent doing lifts. It's like ridiculous. So it's refreshing to hear that you were doing sort of different forms of cardio, tracking steps, and the importance of that I think is definitely seen upon a bit more recently with sort of step trackers and stuff. So definitely a cool approach. One thing I just want to touch on prior to sort of my final question is maybe perhaps with your prep last year. I know that you definitely had one big challenge, but maybe just it might be that one itself, but what was the biggest sort of challenge you had during your competition prep, and potentially also go over how you overcame that specific challenge?
Oh, okay, yeah, you've got it in one. So I think I was 11 days out. I prepped for, altogether, it was about 35 weeks to the finals, 30 weeks to the qualifier, and 11 days out, I got shingles, which for anyone who doesn't know means like a massive blistering rash across your, in my case, back. You also feel like death and can't do very much at all. So my timing was impeccable, and I felt phenomenal. And I'm not being sarcastic at all. Yeah, it was crap. And how did I obviously instantly thought, being the fatalist that I am, well, that's it, prep's over, and that's it, I'm not competing. And then kind of took a view that, right, what got us here? And shingles is a virus. I'll not go into that too much, but it lies in your system, and it can come out when your immune system is compromised for any reason, like prep. So kind of thought, well, what is it about prep that has potentially brought this out and caused this to happen? And I thought, right, I'm very lean. We had just been to London for the weekend, and it was when that massive heat wave happened in August.
Okay.
And we had walked, I think we were hitting like 25, 30,000 steps a day. I wasn't training, but my nutrition had stayed exactly the same. So I'd driven myself into even more of a deficit. I'd had a massive week of cramming in my training before we went to London, to try and, to make it count. With hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. I should have upped my calories or dropped my steps in London, and I should have just focused a little bit more on recovery. We got back from London a few days later. It was like, bam, I feel awful, and then all of a sudden I had shingles. So we sat down and thought, okay, I've got here because I've done too much. It's a bit late now to undo that, but what I need to do is absolutely nothing. And it was the hardest thing, because by the time I was better, I was 4 days out, and I couldn't, in that time, I didn't pose, I didn't train. My step count was about 2,000 a day. I couldn't do a thing. The water retention, obviously, when you get sick, is horrendous. So I was like, well, I'm obese, so I'm not competing. So obviously I felt that. So then I was like, well, I need to go to the gym. I need to go to the gym right now. At least let me do cardio, please, Adam. Please let me do something. And it was just a big fat no. On top of that, I increased my calories massively, because again, recovery. What is food? It is fuel at the end of the day. And I knew, okay, even though my head's going, deep down I know that I am stage ready lean. I am. And eating at maintenance for the next few days is not going to change that, regardless of whether I'm training or not. So I kind of had to channel the small, sensible part of me into going, okay, this is what I need to do. And it worked. And I dropped weight in that week and stood on stage in probably better condition than I'd ever been in before, and better condition than I would have been in 100% if I'd tried to crack on. I think I would have got on stage anyway. Knowing me, I probably would have, but I would have looked terrible and felt worse. And I think sometimes knowing that less is more, not just in prep, but especially for girls, if you're trying to reach any kind of physique related goal, less is more, and you can't achieve anything without your health. So if you're healthy, you perform better. If you're healthy, your body turns things over better, i.e. it will burn fat more efficiently, it will build muscle more efficiently. So prioritize your health, everything else will fall into place.
I think that's superb advice in terms of sort of both dealing with that sort of issue. I mean, I hope that no other female sort of gets to that stage, but I think that, the main take home from that is that, more isn't always better, and the fact that you were pushing so hard did sort of push you that little bit over the edge, and it's so easy to do when you're lean, and people don't realise that, especially. But I don't think there's many people out there that are getting as lean as you, especially as females. So, but I think the generic advice there is just sort of just beware of your health and just put that first when it comes to prepping, because I imagine that a lot of females, even females that sort of don't get as lean, but they still sort of their nutritional approach is damaging in the long term, and I think that's something that needs to be put first.
With your nutrition as well, it's so easy for us to look at something as not even just nutrition but supplements. You'll look at something and go, will it help me burn fat? And that shouldn't be the question. It's, will it benefit my health? So like vitamin C, most bodybuilders take it because it helps you. It's a natural diuretic, so it'll get rid of water retention. Why not look at vitamin C for everything else that it does? Same with like vitamin C. Just people won't take a supplement if it isn't known as a fat burning supplement. But what if it's a multivitamin that keeps you healthy through prep? And prep is your fat burning supplement if you look at it that way.
Exactly. Yeah, I think great advice there in terms of that, and people putting their health first needs to be a priority, and definitely something I hope to see like in the future, just more people putting their health first rather than the physique. So so last question, Emma, I want you to sort of maybe round up your advice for potentially things that females should initially avoid when sort of getting into weight training, getting into competing. Just give maybe your top 2 things that females should potentially avoid when initially getting into things, both competing and just generically in the gym.
Okay, so competing, actually no, this is for both of them. Avoid doing anything for the wrong reason. So don't go to the gym as a punishment for eating food. Don't compete because you want a really good picture for Instagram, or because everybody else does it. Even if you love the gym and you're in great shape, don't compete because people go, wow, you're in really good shape, why don't you compete? If you don't want to compete, don't do it. What else to avoid? Anything that promises a quick fix, tempting as it is to everyone, not just in this sense, but with anything. We want things and we want them right now. But it's a cliche, but nothing worth having ever comes easy. And if someone is promising you the world in 48 hours, you're not going to get the world. You're going to get something really bad and crap that will not enrich your life. So if you've got, someone that you don't know much about in terms of their qualifications or their knowledge, promising that they can get you on stage in 8 weeks, don't do it. Shop around, and don't avoid, if I can say that. I know it's kind of like the opposite of what you've asked, but don't avoid the basics. So your compound movements and eating properly. Don't avoid those. Make them your priority.
Yeah, 100% agreed. So great tips there again, Emma. In terms of your sort of plans moving forwards, in terms of maybe next year, what do we expect to see from yourself if sort of listeners pick up on you and follow you through this? Then what do we expect to see from you in the future, and give us an idea as to what we expect? Okay,
so I try and stray away from calling off season. I like to think of it as pre-season or real life. To me, your off season prep isn't an on and off switch. I always bang on about that. It's not an on and off switch. So for me, off season right now is my prep for next year already. It's just the part of it that isn't a deficit. So I plan to step back on stage with the UK DFBA next year. I placed 3rd at the UK and International this year, so I'd like to beat that next year. Hopefully next year will be the year. I know you're coming back as well, so
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be good.
And so that's it really. Just kind of being healthy, enjoying it, and hopefully getting back on stage and having some fun.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, final thing we need to just do is basically give listeners somewhere to follow you, like your Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and also sort of AM Performance as well. Just mentioned that. And yeah, just tell people where to go and follow you.
Okay, so I'm probably most active on Instagram. My username on Instagram is smileym_AMP. The AMP
Okay.
is AM Performance. You can find myself and my boyfriend, Adam Martin, hence the AM Performance. We run this place, AM
Mm-hmm.
Performance in Liverpool. So you can find us on Facebook or at www.amperformance.co.uk. And yeah, that's
Cool.
it really, I think.
Cool. Wicked. Well, Emma, really, really appreciate you coming onto the podcast, giving away your female tips and knowledge, and I'm sure that so many females will benefit from this. Hopefully we'll share this in all the relevant places, and it will get listened to by some people that potentially are competing next year, and should hopefully save some people from doing the wrong things, but also doing the right things as well, and getting into the best condition of their life. So yeah, really appreciate it, Emma. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's all right. Cool. So yeah, thanks again for listening, guys, to episode 18. So if you are on iTunes, then please give us a review. Likewise, if you are on YouTube, give it a like and subscribe for future episodes. And yeah, I will see you back for episode 19. Thank you.